big event at the Bella restaurant for 200 people, and projects continue to do this on a continuous basis. So that's just a quick overview of Oxford.
Thank you. Anthony, last but not least, the co-founder of Jumi, and also an artist yourself. Can you just give us an introduction to yourself and, of course, Jumi as well?
Yeah, sure. So thank you so much for having us. My name is actually Anthony, the founder of Jumi, which is a curated NFT marketplace for digital art based in Dubai. Just what you would expect from, on Foundation or Supera, you can actually create and trade one-on-one NFTs, but you can also trade in the biggest collections as well, the Bored Apes and the tokens, which were actually integrated as well. We have built our own virtual gallery, which is a metaverse space where artists can essentially showcase their own NFT collections, for gatherings, and effectively socialize. And a few months back, actually, we just branched out into B2B as well. We felt that there was a very big market for it, and there was a demand, So we are essentially providing advisory services for brands to kind of help them achieve their Web3 strategy and create their own NFT collections from scratch. So yeah, that's kind of the description as to why did I actually get involved into the space. I think it comes down to two things. I would say, first of all, I am from a tech background, like a startup background. Charles and myself, which is actually my co-founder, we had a startup before. And I have also an art background, so I did a couple of big art installations and stuff. So essentially, when I saw NFTs mixed with art, because to be honest, it was the first biggest use case that we ever seen, I was really attracted. I felt that this was very compelling. And so that's why we actually decided to pretty much fight out overnight. And we jumped right into it and never looking back ever again.
I guess this is like a perfect segue into my next question. Like, how easy or difficult was it to get people to buy into what you guys were doing? All of you have kind of like ventured into this space kind of early on in the game, when it was not the hype bubble that Nelly was talking about earlier as well. So I'm curious to hear, like, how has that evolved over time? Like, how easy was it to get people to buy into what you guys are doing? And has that remained consistent? Has that grown? Has that dropped? What's the situation right now?
Yeah, it's a good question, actually. It's been a change, first of all, on... I'm going to start with this by building the team, especially in the UAE, because, it's not... Let's be very honest with that. So there was a lack of talent, and especially when it comes to the tech part. So we're running on Ethereum, which is the biggest blockchain for smart contracts. And so we need to find some Solidity developers, which is the language that you're using to develop on that network. So first of all, assembling a team, which is very competent and who have an expertise in connecting to the blockchain and stuff, it was quite a challenge. Secondly, obviously, if you look at the biggest player, OpenSea, Foundation, Supera, they actually started way back in 2017. So these guys actually had a lot of tendency to start with. So OpenSea such players are also difficult to find so that's why we decided to pretty much have a 20% in the market. It's not that we have a service and we have a couple of techniques to extract that's why we developed our virtual gallery, so they can actually showcase the NFT collections as well. So we tend to actually provide value for the artists, so they can actually feel their value.
The same question. Actually, you kind of mentioned, I heard about the podcast like much before I met you, so I knew the podcast, I knew about the events that you guys have been doing. But have you been, and again, right now you are the largest in real life community in the region. I'm curious to know, like, how has that process been in terms of developing this audience, developing this community? Has it been easy to get people on board? Has it been falling off the charts now? Like, what's the situation as we go through the current phase of the market?
Yeah, that's a good question. No, it hasn't been a straight line. Running a community of that size comes obviously with some challenges. It's almost like running a small little city, and you're the governor, and you have to direct people and manage people. There's conflicts that you have to solve, and some of those conflicts has sometimes evolved between community members. If you don't manage it appropriately and timely, that could jeopardize everything. So it hasn't been a straight line. We have had incidents that has been putting the whole thing at risk. But like looking back at the last 9-10 months, it's been an incredible journey, and we managed it quite well. And now we're at a stage where there's a lot of interest. A lot of people want to be part of what we're building, and a lot of people just mainstream. The reason why there's so many people here today is there's a lot of interest in the NFT space as a whole and Web3. And part of that is because people want to make quick buck. Part of it is because there's a lot of hype around it. But part of it is also because there's a lot of use cases for NFTs. And if you truly understand the technology and what it brings to different types of businesses, you can actually use that in whichever business you're interested in.
Mihail, I want to bring you back into this conversation and kind of like touch upon a topic that Nosh just brought up. And again, I heard it like in the questions as well, if you were for the session earlier. Yes, people are trying to make a big buck out of it. I mean, so what? We've seen that happen in other businesses or other sectors as well. But from your point of view, working with brands, who want to create NFT collections or who want to venture into the space, how are you kind of like explaining to them or explaining to brands to showcase an interest in it? Like, there was a question here earlier, like, I'm just a wandering person, what do I get from venturing into the space? How do you answer these questions for people who are running businesses and people you are interacting with at both organizations, of course, Meros as well?
Well, I think that obviously there is a lot of interest, first of all, coming from the market, from our current clients, from our current partners as well. And we were actually speaking earlier, everyone just wants to enter in this space because their competitors are already doing it or someone else globally is doing it. For us, it all starts with building the value proposition to, I would say, 2 key points. One is defining the strategic objectives for that particular company or venturing in that space, and I touched on it with some examples as well. And the second one is actually the roadmap for them to get there. So what is it that they are actually going to do in order to achieve that strategic objective? So if I were to place, let's say, the strategic objective in 3 very broad categories, we would have number 1, you as a company, you want to stand out, you want to differentiate from competitors, and you want to be perceived as an innovator in that particular space. Secondly, you want to engage your existing audience in completely new ways through the use of NFTs or the metaverse inherently. And the third one is you as a company want to tap into a completely new audience, into a new market, particularly Gen Z, which is your next generation of customers, right? What can you do in this case? Number 1, you can create a completely new product as an NFT, a digital product. Secondly, you can add value to one of your existing products through the use of an NFT. Or thirdly, you can recognize your current audience, your current stakeholders by using an NFT. Just a few examples, I know that you touched upon some, and there are plenty of other use cases, of course, for NFTs, and that's what excites us in this space, especially as working with semi-governmental entities and with large corporates. But if you want to, let's say, deep dive into Gen Z and attract them as your target audience, what Gucci did with creating wearables for avatars is a great step. If you want to add value to one of your existing products and pairing that physical product with an NFT, like Nike did, like even local leaders, Christopher Giebelware that did that as well, is also a great step. And thirdly, if you want to reward your existing audience, the Expo 2020 is now running a campaign where they want to drop NFTs to some that have visited the Expo site. So definitely there are numerous ways, and for us, everything starts with actually building this foundation right and trying to make to support everyone that we work with, our clients and our partners, to understand why they should, if and why they should venture in this space.
I kind of want to focus on the main or the key use case that we've been hearing a lot about, and that is again with respect to the arts sector, if you want to call it. And Anthony, I'm pose this question to you. Perhaps again, maybe because of the arts background, that's why I kind of want to pose this question to you. Is again, there were questions earlier, like we were seeing more the article, and there was a question of, well, what's the value in that? Like how can I define this value? And I'm curious to see from your point of view, like how would you answer that question? Personally, for me, again, I can say like we were talking about avatars wearing like clothes, brand clothes. Yes, there is one person who says they don't want it. There can also be one other person who says who wants it. And it's the same case with the banana on the wall. If you remember from 2 years ago, it sold for $150,000. Yes, there's clearly a demand for it. So I'm curious to hear how you would answer those kind of questions. Like, where is the value inherent in this? How would you describe the value in these kind of products?
Yeah, I think we've been talking a lot about mainly the avatar collection of Bored Apes, CryptoPunks, etc. I think we should actually zoom out for a bit, and I'm going to give you two use cases. Okay. The first one is actually the one that has been developed on Ethereum, and it's a new type of NFTs. It's called the Solbound. I don't know if any one of you actually heard about Solbound. You can raise your hand. Okay. So Solbound NFT is very simple. It's an NFT which is non-transferable. I'm gonna give you an example. Tomorrow you go to university and you're gonna graduate from that university. This university potentially in the future will issue to you a Solbound which will receive in a wallet, and that you won't be able to transfer. It's to you, you own it. It's kind of considered as a badge of accomplishment. You went to Harvard is going to issue your Solbound, and that's it. And I think, if you think about that as entrepreneurs, and when it comes to recruiting people, and you're going to get to receive a lot of CVs and stuff, it's very difficult to see through the bullshit. Because you can say you did, but at the end, something from experience, Anyway, and but my point is, if tomorrow you have the CV, on top of it you get the wallet from the guy, and you can actually make sure that you went to Harvard because you have the Harvard Solbound, you did this certification because you got the Solbound, and then again it's a proof of authenticity, and I think it's very valuable, and it's a compelling proposition to make. Second thing, something that happened actually quite recently. So in France, which is where I'm from, a month ago.
We figured that out.
Thank you. I was trying to help, man. Yeah. So basically, a month ago there was a football match, the Champions League, the final of the Champions League, which was basically Liverpool versus Real Madrid. I don't know. So I don't know if you heard about these guys, but there was a lot of Mayhem. It was basically, I think, around 10% of all the tickets were actually fake. Can happen. Only in France, frankly. So anyways, my point is, even a couple of days back, I was reading a student article. The French government said, you know what, we're highly looking into NFTs as a measure to be able to prevent such an incident. Because if you think about that, in the ticketing industry, if you implement NFTs for your tickets, you know that you are the owner of this specific ticket, and that's it, you know, and there's no issues anymore. So what I'm trying to say is that through these two kind of use cases, you can see the value of NFTs. It's not only, you know, pictures of monkeys and, you know, I'm a bit tired of people talking about that written. Yeah, okay.
It's one aspect.
Yeah, it's one aspect. It's one aspect, and you have also the one-of-one art, which is something that we do focus on. You know, avatar project is one thing. I like it myself, but then again, you have a multitude of use cases that you can actually look into. And I think it's very transformative.
I think of late what I've seen is there is a departure, like you rightly said, of these NFT projects being seen as like some like memberships to different kind of events, different kinds of perks, and so on and so forth. Having said all that, I do have to bring up Bill Gates, and you know what? I have to bring it up because again, there have been questions. I'm getting comments on my Instagram already, like, "Hey, but Bill Gates said it was a sham." So, what do you have to say about that? So, this is a question for all three of you. Maybe Dhanush, I'm going to put you on the spot and have you start off.
Sure. So, I mean, obviously Bill Gates is not God, and even though he's been very successful, he can still be wrong. You know, he called NFTs, what was it said, fools, the greater fool theory. The fool theory, yeah. So the greater fool theory is basically if I sell something to you, then you're a greater fool, and if there's another greater fool that will buy it at a higher price, the price will keep increasing. So I do agree, I mean, to some extent that is valid, but the way I would like to define NFTs is as a new asset class. And now imagine everyone here in this room is part of a community we build together. And I create, or Anthony creates a fantastic piece of art. Now Anthony might decide that he wants to sell that piece of art to me for $1, which is significantly undervalued, right? But if Michaela wants to buy that piece from me for 2 and the next person wants to buy it for 3 and 4 because there's a demand and because that piece of art gives you a specific utility, then it's natural that the price will have a quick acceleration and a high growth in that price curve. Also, NFTs are usually finite in supply, right? So some projects have 10,000, some projects have just 10, some projects have 100, and that finite supply also gives that increase in price. Now, there was a gentleman over there in the crowd that said, well, look at price of gold. Well, I mean, if you look at the price of gold since the inception of gold, the price increase has been dramatic. However, gold is not finite in supply. Gold is extracted on a daily basis, right? So there's a big difference, and you can't really make that comparison.
Fair enough. I just also want to mention, like, it's completely, there is truth to what Gates is saying, fine, but then again, remember, he's the guy who tried to sell us Windows Vista, so we should not forget. Mihaela, your response to that statement.
Sure. Well, I tend to largely agree to Bill Gates' opinion, and for one particular reason, as both my panel colleagues have mentioned. The focus over the past period has mostly been as NFTs as digital art and as collections of NFTs, and some of them don't really have a utility attached, not to generalize. Now, to bring you a little bit back to what I believe were the two crucial points that marked this current hype that we are now seeing. One of them was the auction that Christie's did for Beeple's art at $69 million, which Nilio also brought up earlier. Well, what we tend to forget in the majority of the cases is that by the time that happened, Beeple was already a very well-established digital artist. So besides him already working in the space, he committed every day for 13 plus years of creating a new piece of digital art, right? So all that collection was essentially auctioned. What this gave birth to is a lot of individuals that want to place a bet on the space and that want to get in the space for a very short-term financial return, and we have plenty of, let's say, self-proclaimed artists, among, of course, the traditional artists and the pure artists, that what they are doing, in some cases, they are even using shortcuts of AI-generated artworks and just putting on marketplaces, right? Then we are going to the second defining moment, which is Bored Ape Yacht Club, that I know that everyone brought up several times. However, what we tend to forget is that it's not just a generative art project, right? So as we already spoke about it, it has a utility attached to it, but it also gives you access to an exclusive network of like-minded individuals. When I personally look at that project, I reflect a little bit on my past role from a few years ago at Capital Club, where I used to be a membership director. The very first reason why members were joining was because of the exclusivity, because of who they were going to be able to meet and be surrounded by the who's who of Dubai. Secondly, it was because of the utility, having access to club spaces and obviously the other perks that were coming to it. So circling back to Bill Gates' perspective, I think that when we look just at these two aspects, yes, this hype is short-lived, but as we tend to focus more on other use cases, like in our example, we are setting the foundation with one of our clients for an NFT project that is going to support their CSR initiative, or for loyalty programs, or some of the other use cases that were brought about. I think that that's the next evolution in NFTs, where this hype is no longer going to be existent, or will coexist, but in a more limited amount.
Anthony, can I ask you also to respond to Bill Gates? What would your response be to, like, statements like that are made by Bill Gates when he kind of like classifies the whole thing as?
Yeah, I do understand what he says, honestly. The NFT space is a place where you've got a lot of speculation, a lot of gambling. Let's be honest with that. I was the first one to gamble. But then again, I mean, if you zoom out, because I like zooming out, and you tend to realize that it's much more broad than what it was actually specifying. If you talk about just a picture, a JPEG of a monkey, yes. Even though Bored Apes actually do have a lot of perks. First of all, it's all about the community. Second of all, you do have passive income. If you are an holder today of a Bored Ape, you can actually get an airdrop of a land, tokens, so there is a utility behind. And plus, there is something that people tend to forget a lot. In that specific case, is that you do get the commercial rights. Then again, I will be giving you two examples. But there was two guys actually, I think, back in the US. One of the guy actually is the holder of a Bored Ape. Actually created a chain of burgers. So all the visual aspect of the restaurant is actually based on this Bored Ape. And there is also someone that is currently working on a movie, So it's like the next Disney. So you can actually get very creative if you want to by holding these NFTs, and this is what I would like to focus on. This it opens doors, and there's no barriers for creativity anymore.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
I just want to add another point to this. So the NFT space, yes, it is in a hype bubble kind of phase, and it resembles a lot the dot-com bubble. Now, the dot-com bubble came with a lot of crashes, and the same thing is definitely going to happen in the NFT space. But what happened after that was the companies that actually survived that actually came on to become something really, really great. And I believe that the companies in the NFT space that are going to weather the storm and are actually building something of value can go on to become the next Instagram, Facebook, Apple, or whatever. Now, back to what Nelio said about how do you select that project. Well, all the things he mentioned are correct. You look at the utility, you look at the roadmap, the team, the founders, the community. It's a lot like VC investing. Investing into NFT is a lot like investing into companies, right?
So you need to do your due diligence. You need to spend time really studying what you're investing into. The same with the stock market. If you're investing in a stock, you ideally want to know the balance sheet and the company and what they're building. Otherwise, it's gambling. Otherwise, if you just buy Apple stocks without even looking at anything, it is gambling because you believe the trend is going in a certain direction. And with NFTs, it's exactly the same.
I'm going to open it up for questions, but like final comments if you want to say. And I kind of want to link back to what Nelia was saying. Like for people who are thinking about venturing into this space, if there is one piece of advice or a few tips you would give them, what would that be? Again, can we start with you, Anthony?
Yeah, sure. I think it's do your own research. It's very important. Don't try to buy in a project without even looking at the team. Exactly what Danosh mentioned. The team, the project itself, the roadmap, the utility. All these things all combined can actually give you very good indications as to is it something that I would like to invest in or not. And then to venture in that space, so I think you can actually just go online and just read as many articles as possible. Go on Medium, go on Mirror, go on YouTube. YouTube is a phenomenal tool to get the knowledge. Spend hours and hours researching about that. Put some keywords and create your own Word documents with some keywords, for example, because, especially in the NFT space, I feel like there is a very specific language that sometimes people feel a bit lost about. But yeah, just by putting the time and effort, I do agree with Danosh. Again, we're still very early stage. So I think it's the right time to get more knowledge and, venture into it. So.
Same question, Danosh. Again, this is in response to the people who look at the scams, look at the environmental concerns, and so on and so forth. Yeah, how would you suggest they go about, again, keeping an eye on this space?
So there's two ways. So either you become an active investor and you invest privately, or you create an NFT project. So we start with the first one. If you want to invest into an NFT project, just understand the space, do your research, go on, start following one project that you find interesting, go onto their Twitter, see what the community is talking about, see how engaged that community is, go onto that Discord channel. It's not easy investing into NFTs, and you can lose a lot of money if you're not doing it the right way. So you need to spend that time to really do your research. And then jump into it by buying your first NFT. The best way to learn is by doing. So just buy one NFT that you're comfortable with, which you can afford, and that's it. For someone that wants to start a project, I would say, don't underestimate how much time it's going to take without scaring anyone away. But try to think about what is the application that the NFT is going to bring that can add value to your existing business model. Don't see it as a cash grab, because then you won't succeed in the long run. See how can NFTs actually contribute to your business model improving, and think about all the different elements that you need to incorporate, like the smart contracts. Don't overlook what type of smart contract developers you need. Don't overlook the audit that contract needs to have. Think about how do you create demand for the NFT, etc. So there's a long checklist if you run a project, but that's my 2 cents. Yeah.
Mihaela, same question. And if you want, I again, just to add to the audience here, I would encourage you to check out Miros as well. I have never actually heard of dual state NFT until I saw your platform, so I'm curious to hear your thoughts for the audience who are venturing into the space. Yeah.
Well, just to add on both Anthony's and Danosh's points, I think actually one point to be highlighted here is that something that they've both mentioned, self-education, research, or if you want to go in the space as an investor, due diligence is definitely necessary. I would look at 2 areas. One, if you're an investor and you want to venture into this space and to buy in one of the existing projects, You really need to, and I'm not here to give financial advice, but you should be looking at what is it that drives you to invest. What are your values, and also what do you expect? So let's put this into three categories. If you're looking for a short-term financial return, then maybe looking into all the generative art projects that are coming up currently is one way to go about it, because you're then going to act more or less like a forex trader, and you're going to aim for an immediate ROI the moment that project picks up in value immediately after it's live. The second one is you're looking for a longer term investment. Let's say more like a VC in the world of startups. They are still looking for exits, but a little bit longer down the road. So in this case, you would be looking for maybe digital art projects that are coming from emerging artists that have a high potential to grow on the longer term, or also the NFT projects that are coming from already well established or reputable brands. And thirdly, I would say that there is that investor that looks for status, looks for recognition and something very long term. So if that is you, you probably in real life be a classic art collector or an art collector that lends the art pieces to museum for display. In this case, you would be looking for very well established artists, for brands that you resonate with, and you'd be looking for NFTs that probably are singular, unique, authentic, and original. And lastly, because I also want to catch my breath, if you're a company and you want to venture in this space, the first question that you need to ask yourselves is this the practical thing to do at the current stage my company is in? Because maybe you're a startup that is just now trying to enter the market. Would adding an NFT aspect to your startup really add value, or would it just confuse your stakeholders? So these are my 2 cents.
Thank you so much, guys. I'm going to open it up for questions. If you can just raise your hands if there are questions. No, nobody's like venturing up. Yeah, sorry.
Hi guys, my name is Sushil. So what I wanted to ask was, now you mentioned about NFTs and the use case scenarios. I work closely with a couple of brands that are kind of old school. They're not like keen to enter the NFT space. How can I convince them that so these are physical products, they have a decent online presence, that converting them having physical products into NFTs would enable them and bring more value to their business as it grows. So just want to see how that will apply in a real case scenario like this, in terms of products that are there in the market, and people know about them.
Sure, I can start. So thank you very much for the question. I think it's a valid point, especially in the case of, let's say, the more traditional and the more established already companies. I would always reflect back to the points that I've mentioned earlier. What is it that they are actually trying to achieve? What is their strategic objective? Are they actually trying to tap into a completely new audience? And through the use of NFTs, they can do that. Are they trying to add value to their loyal audiences, and an NFT would also support them to do that? So I think that these are just maybe 2 aspects to look into. And secondly, there are also the other use cases for NFTs that aren't necessarily related to the customer facing. Maybe it is around sustainability, and maybe for them, starting to use NFT, even if it's as a very nascent market currently, as supply chain traceability, this might be something of interest. I mean, the opportunities there are endless, but it's just really trying to work with your clients and helping them and also supporting them understand what is their ambition as well.
I would just want to add to that as well. So when you look at how NFTs can be applied to the fashion industry, there's loads of examples, right? There's a lot of big brands that are already entering the space. Look at Adidas, look at Nike, but also some of the bigger fashion brands. Even watch brands like Breitling are entering into the space. And why are they doing that? Well, one, because there's a use case. So the use case is you can track provenance of an NFT. So if my watch is sold to Anthony and that watch is sold to someone else, we can track the ownership throughout the whole process. That's one thing. The other thing is you will also be able to check the authenticity of that piece, right? So it's all verifiable on the blockchain. And there is NFTs that are twigital, right? So there's a physical and there's a physical, let's say, QR code or physical chip in that product. And when you scan it, it gives you the NFT in the digital format, and you can then check that online to check the authenticity. That's another use case. And the third use case I would say is royalties. So if you're a fashion company and you want to earn money from secondary sales on your products, you can do that through baking in like 0.01% royalty. Imagine if Louis Vuitton did that on every single bag that was sold on the secondary market, they would make millions. So that's just a few of the use cases. Now, if you want to apply that to your fashion company, you need to think about what is the value that you can bring to them, right? And how can NFT solve for that?
Thanks, guys. One more question.
Hi, this is Prakyat here. I'm the managing director for Prakyat Group of companies in India. So I have a question for, since you guys told me that it all depends on the founders and everything, right? So basically, we have a project and we are not coming with the NFT background or crypto background. So is it a good idea to collaborate with somebody, or is it a good idea for us to create a community and then get into the market?
So you have to tell me a little bit more. What type of company is it?
It's a real estate company.
It's a real estate
construction company. We construct apartments, villas, as you said, the example.
And what's the reason why you want to launch an NFT?
The main reason is I want my customers to have a piece of actual physical land in the metaverse as well.
Okay, so you're gonna do a duplicate version of the physical in the metaverse as well. Yes. Okay, understand. So there's this for real estate. There's loads of use cases, right? So one of the use cases is you can have fractional ownership of a piece of land. Let's say you have 1,000 acres. You can divide that into 1,000 NFTs, and each NFT represents one piece of that land. Now, in some countries, that is classified as a security, so you need to be careful about the regulation, because fractionalized ownership of assets can be seen as that. But the reason why you want to create a replica in the metaverse, what is that?
That I have something in my mind I want to discuss personally when we are there. But is it good to have a team of my own or to collaborate with the top people?
I think it's definitely better to outsource it to companies that are experienced in running these type of projects, because running an NFT project is, it requires a lot of attention to detail. It requires some experience in the space. You need to have the right developers. You need to have, and hiring that team in-house can be very, very costly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Thank you.
Any more questions, guys? Oh, one more.
Hello, my name is Hassan. I'm the founder of Self App. We are a marketplace for the adventure tourism market. We started in Dubai, but hopefully moving forward with the GCC. You guys have covered amazing information. Thank you a lot. But at the end, you've mentioned that certain things need to be required in order to start your own NFT project, and specifically if you are a startup. Can you share from obviously everyone's perspective, what are these requirements that initially maybe a startup should have, or at least invest in prior to engaging in the NFT world? Thank you.
Sure. Thank you for the question. I think that as a startup, first of all,
normally startups have limited resources, right? So to Danosh's point earlier, if you would like to engage into an NFT project, maybe you would want to first look into what is the right expertise, who are the right professionals, and who can support you put together that roadmap as to where you want to reach. Secondly, also, what you need to keep in mind when you're venturing into an NFT project is maybe another question: am I actually generating value at both ends? So when I'm saying generating value at both ends, is what you're planning to do going to add value to your company, to your startup, and in return to your stakeholders? And my third point here would be to also keep in mind, how are you going to measure the success of a project when you're a startup? Is it going to be related to immediate ROI that you're looking at, or are you going to look through the use of NFTs to build your brand on the long term? That is going to result in trust, authority, reputation, but again, that's a metric that on the long term can be seen basically. So I'll just now pass it further to add a few more points.
So I'm just going to give an example of, let's say, a profile picture project, right? So if you want to do a profile picture project as an NFT project and you have certain utilities, in order to do that type of project successfully, you will need a team of smart contract developers that can develop a properly good smart contract. You will need auditors that audit that smart contract to make sure it's well done. You need front-end web developers that can develop your website. You need back-end Web3 developers that are separate from the front-end usually, but not always, that can create that Web3 integration, because when you're going to mint or buy the NFT on your website, you need to connect your MetaMask wallet, so the website needs to be enabled for Web3 applications. Then you need the marketing team, and the marketing in the Web3 space is very different from marketing in the Web2 space. In Web3, you market yourself by building an online community. It's very Twitter and Discord focused rather than, let's say, Facebook and Instagram. Usually paid ads are frowned upon. It's more seen as scammy projects. And then from a legal point of view, you need to understand the regulatory hurdles and what you can and cannot do in the jurisdiction. So yeah, that's just a few of the things, and we can have a separate chat if you want as well.
Yeah, I'm just gonna be talking from my own experience. And by the way, that's a very good point on the legal part, because as you guys may actually have heard about that, there is a new authority which is called the VARA, and which seeks to essentially regulate the space, the digital asset. For now, you know, it's still not very much finalized, but still it's coming. Again, coming back to my own experience, I would say, you know, definitely building a team is very important. Pay attention to developers, make sure that they can actually, you know, fully develop your product. So I think it's very important to test the skills and make sure that, you know, the skill sets is there. Secondly, it's more about like finding your product market fit. So make sure that you can actually, you know, come up with your own positioning, you know, with a strong value proposition that that you can give out. And thirdly, maybe about the funding. It's quite important. So make sure that you have enough runway. I'm more talking specifically about starting a startup, basically, more than a PFE projects. But make sure you do have enough runway to sustain, and especially when, you know, you do have the bear market coming up. Coming right now. So, you know, it's what can actually kill you, basically. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you so much, Anthony, Danosh, and Mihaela. With that, we have to kind of put a close to today's event. I just want to say thank you to Danosh from ArtsDAO, Anthony from Jumi, Mihaela from Miros, and of course Nelio from Urban Monks. For those of you guys who want to, you know, keep in touch with them. We have been tagging them on our stories on Instagram and Twitter. It's DTech_DSO for DTech, and for Entrepreneur, it is ENT Magazine ME. Thank you all for being here. And I would also add, like, if you can scan this and give us your feedback for the event, that would be great. It will allow us to tailor more events in the future that are suited to your topics and your things. Guys, once again, thank you so much. And to the audience, thank you. Thank you for being here. Have a good